This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Matchroom Boxing CEO Frank Smith here in San Francisco. I forgot where he was for a second there, Frank, seeing you all over the place. But yeah, how are you? How was your journey over?
I'm good, mate. It was a long old journey, delayed flight. I thought it would be sunny, but it's actually raining, so I'm a bit sad about that. Wearing linen, but it's not really working in the San Francisco rain. But it's good to be here.
I was going to say, more of a casual look about you today, Frank.
I know I've got the hat on. I feel like someone said I got a black eye, so I'm just covering the eyes.
You and Eddie been body sparring again?
If I was body sparring, I
wouldn't be a black eye.
Honest. But no, I don't know. Maybe just a few people having a little move around. I think so. I think I'm all right.
It's all right, I can edit in a little black eye there. Speaking of you and Eddie, a little race on Saturday with betting available to those who want to put some money on it.
Honestly, I don't know where these things come from, but yes, I am racing him in the 5K. He has set the faster 5K personal best, but I've beat him a few times, and he started making a few. He's saying, "Can I have a flat course?" He doesn't want hills. He's picking his A side of the poster. He's picking the route and everything. And look, I'm just here to take part. He's competitive, and I think they've priced. I'm 3-1. He's even money, and I'm 3-1. Not sure about this.
Are there in-play odds available? You might get me doing the run if there's in-play odds available, Frank.
We'll have to ask Bet Online, to be honest. I mean, I've got it all set up. I've got a meal plan for the day before. I got my stretching schedule. I got my warm-up schedule. I got my C4 energy booster at set time. So I'm taking this seriously. I'm going to get some ex-runners in as well, and we're going to create one of those V's in front of me to hide the wind. But I'm not, he's more competitive than me, but he goes off really quick. That's what he does. And then I always catch him.
So he gasses towards the end?
Yeah, because he gets all excited around all his mates, And he's like, I'm really fit now, men's health. But now he's making excuses. He's saying, men's health shoot was 3 weeks ago. I haven't been training as much. So I'm looking forward to it.
Frank, you're not the only one. I'm sure many people will turn up in their droves to watch yourself and Eddie race. But away from that, we're here, San Francisco, Haney-Prograis, big fight, huge fight, WBC World Super Lightweight title. Speak to both men earlier, both supremely confident. What do you expect to see, though, on Saturday night?
Yeah, look, massive fight, as you say. You got the best, arguably the best at 140 in Regis-Prograis, taking on the undisputed 135 champion in Devin Haney. Devin Haney has really, what he's done in the sport to date at just 25 years old is quite sensational, but a fight we all want to see and can't wait for Saturday night, and I think we're in for a proper tear-up.
What question marks, if you're Devin and you win, what questions would that answer for him in terms of effectively how well he takes a shot? Because some people draw back on the Linares fight being the most obvious one amongst a couple of others where he has been caught, he's shown maybe he's been wobbled. If he comes through somebody like a Regis-Prograis, what questions would that answer? Yeah,
look, obviously Regis-Prograis got a big punch. I think the big difference is going to be the weight. You can all look at Devin Haney, especially at the weigh-in, and the £5 is going to make a huge difference for him here. But Regis-Prograis, like I say, a big puncher, and I think a lot of people, should Devin Haney get the win, a lot of people then going to look at him. At that point, he's become undisputed at 135. He's talking about going up to 147 after this as well. He's in a great place in the sport if he can get the win on Saturday. But Regis-Prograis will be fully focused and committed on keeping his belt.
How does that look contractually? So I believe Eddie said that you guys have matching rights on Devin's next fight. So what do you think you could offer him outside of this coming weekend?
I think naturally for the winner of the fight I see out there is Ryan Garcia. He had a lot of people were doubting him in the Duarte fight. A lot of people thought he was going to lose in that fight, but he showed how good he is, and he showed improvements as well. And I think for me that's the fight to make for the winner of the fight on Saturday night. That's a huge fight.
What is that relationship like between yourselves and Goldenboy? I know you share the same broadcaster, but just on a promotional basis, how do things sit like that?
Yeah, look, we made John Ryder against Eric Munguia. Jaime. I'm going to give up with names now. Against Jaime Munguia last week. I spoke to Eric Gomez, messaged him a day or so ago. I'm speaking to him later this week. So, relationships are good. If there's fights to be made that make sense for both sides, we're always going to work well together. And that's the same with any promoters, not just Goldenboy because of the DAZN relationship. But yeah, we're in a good place.
Just on Jaime Munguia, John Ryder, it's a fantastic fight. I know Jaime's going to be a bit of a favourite, but I know a lot of people in boxing are somewhat tipping John to get that victory out here in the States. Just your thoughts on that bout?
Yeah, 100%. I think he can get the win. Munguia had a tough fight against Derevyanchenko a few months ago now. I think John Ryder's shown that he deserves to be at that top level. Look, the Canelo fight, he showed so much heart. To go 12 rounds in that fight. He was injured, the nose early on in that fight. But I think he's got a great chance of winning that. And if he comes through that, there's some massive fights at 168 for him.
One man who I wasn't expecting to mention him as a potential fight was David Benavidez. I think it was in his post-fight press conference, or it might have been just before then, I asked him kind of what potential fights are out there that would interest him, and he mentioned John's name. And I do believe, and you might think this as well, but John's performance against Canelo somewhat made him more of a viable option for fighters who are looking towards that fight because they want to do a better job than what Canelo did against John Ryder.
Yeah, 100%. They want to compare themselves to him. Look, John Ryder put in a better performance than a load of people who have fought Canelo in recent times. He stayed in there, showed a lot of heart staying there in a tough fight. Look, Canelo's a tremendous fighter, but a lot of people, like you say, especially if he comes through the Munguia fight, a lot of people are going to be calling out his name, and he's in a great position coming off the back of that fight.
Just coming back to this card, Liam Paro, Montana Love. An interesting fight. Some people questioning how much Montana Love has left on the back of a Stevie Spark fight. Liam Paro hasn't been active, obviously due to injury. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think the fact Liam's been out for, 2.5 years, year and a half, sorry, when it was the last fight was Brock Jarvis, obviously in Australia. He's was supposed to fight Prograis earlier this year. Had to pull out of a couple of fights, which has been unfortunate for him. I think that makes it, that brings an edge to the fight. I think Liam's favourite still in this fight, but being out of the ring for that long is never ideal. And Montana has had a few fights in that time, but yeah, it's going to be a tough road back for him. But I think, if it's an entertaining fight, there's so many fights out there for both of them, win, lose or draw in the 140 division. But Liam looks in great shape, as does Montana. He knows the pressure that's on his shoulders and what he needs to do. So looking forward to that one.
One of those potential fights and a man who will be linked with probably the winner of both of these bouts on Saturday is Jack Catterall. Caught up with him out in Belfast. He said he's going to fly out to watch the show. What do you think's most likely for him next? Obviously, if you mention Haney-Garcia, outside of that fight, where do you go with Jack Catterall?
Look, the focus, we want to try and make the Josh Taylor fight. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen. But that is the fight we'd love to make. It's a massive fight, and I think it's the best fight for both of them next, honestly. Where, when you look at other options out there, but it's not going to be easy.
Talks continuing around that fight?
Yeah, they're continuing. Eddie's speaking to Top Rank, obviously, currently about that. So, we'll see how things play out. But I think it's the next week or so we'll know whether that's possible.
So I was going to ask you, obviously, a few dates are starting to be announced in the UK, not just with Matchroom, but with other guys. We're hearing a few dates touted for your show. So where would you like to see that kind of land on the date front?
Probably, I'd say around March time for that fight, if that's late Feb, March, something around there. But we're just working through our whole schedule now. Look, the Feb 3 discussions are a big part of that as well. Obviously, the Eubank Men discussion. So let's see.
Come on to Eubank Ben shortly, but just to swing back to this weekend, Ebanie Bridges. Frustrating time for her. She hasn't fought for a year now. She comes back. Avril Matthew fight falls through. How difficult of a period has it been to get a replacement in Yoshida, and what are you expecting from this fight?
Yeah, look, I think Ebanie had a great performance in her last fight. It was in Leeds, back in Leeds. She's been out longer than she wanted. Obviously the injury hasn't been ideal. Obviously moved across to Dave Coldwell now. I think we'll see. Let's see the improvements under Dave Coldwell. But the focus was to get her this fight, especially when Avril pulled out. We didn't want to delay it any further. She's waited long enough. And I think, Yoshida's a good test for her, obviously IBF ranked. So, yeah, that was the key. Get her active and then keep her busy early part next year.
And of course, you have a mercurial talent, Mr. Andy Cruz, returning, only his second outing as a pro so far. But what are you hoping to see against Giovanni Straffon, a man who many in the UK will know?
Yeah, look, I think Andy Cruz, as we said, is a special fighter. Probably waited a little bit longer to get him out because we felt this was the right card for him. You know, he probably would have fought October, November time, but we felt this was the perfect platform for him on the undercard of Haney-Prograis. And, you know, strap on for your second fight. It's a real test. But I think he showed in his first fight the skill he's got and also an entertaining style. You know, and I think he's going to be a force in the sport for years to come. So excited for this. Not a walk in the park fight by any means, and Strafon's going to bring it.
Just to take me back to Belfast, Frank, a bit of time's passed. Obviously, we've got the shock upset of Jordan Gill stopping Michael Conlan. A lot of question marks now as to whether we see a rematch. Obviously, Jordan said there is a rematch clause in Mick's favour, but some people may be suggesting, does Michael even want to continue boxing? Have you had any conversations with Mick since then?
Not Mick. I spoke to Jamie yesterday. Look, I think, you know, it's very fresh still. You know, it's only 3 or 4 days since the fight. I think he's got a lot to compute and decide as to what he wants to do next. He's had a tremendous career in the sport, but he's coming off the back of some tough fights. You know, the last few fights, obviously the Lee Wood fight, then he had the comeback fight, but then the Lopez fight after that. You know, and hard losses. You know, and hard fights. So he's got to make the right decision. He's fortunate because of the work he's done, but that in a position that not many fighters get to, where he set himself up for life off the back of, you know, what he's done in the sport. So he hasn't got those pressures, but it will obviously be in his own mind what he wants to do. You know, and whether he wants to have that one more opportunity, and that's something he'll have to decide. But you know, we'll see. It's like I say, it's been 3 or 4 days, so I think it's going to take another week or so before he actually gets to a position to decide what he wants to do.
He's obviously had, prior to Jordan, 2 quite brutal stoppage defeats back to back. Not back to back, but obviously in close timing of each other. With that in mind, was it a surprise to you to see kind of how much success Jordan was having, and maybe looking at Mick thinking, effectively, a lot of people question how badly his punch resistance had kind of declined?
I think we always said, though, we've seen Jordan in fights like that where he shows his power, and you know, but he did it early on in this fight against Mick, and he probably surprised a lot of people in that sense. We always thought it would be an entertaining fight. Mick was definitely the favourite going into it, but we knew what Jordan could bring. You know, you look back at 4 years ago, I think it was, when he lost in Peterborough, and who would have thought we'd be where we were last weekend, and he goes and puts on a performance like that and gets the win of his career. So boxing's a crazy sport, really. But yeah, I think surprised by the way it finished. Not saying that I didn't think Jordan had a chance, but I didn't see it going like that, if I'm honest.
Frank, moving away from that and to come back onto a topic you mentioned earlier, Conor Benn, Cruz Eubank Jr. Again, we had a chat last week. You said a 48 to 72 hour period. We're quite in excess of that now.
I didn't tell you when the period started, though, did I? I said that.
You didn't give me an exact...
48 to 72 hours from... Could be February the 1st. No.
I don't think it would be February 1st.
Yeah, look, it's ongoing. And again, seems to be the same question answer, you know, every week until it doesn't happen. But I really think, and we've said this, like I said, 48, 72 hours, this is the week. It's 8 weeks away this Saturday. A fight of this magnitude, this scale, in a stadium, it's just the time it takes to put it together. So it either gets done this week or it doesn't. If it doesn't get done this week, we focus on something else for Conor Benn. We represent Conor Benn, obviously. I believe sense will prevail for everyone, and it will happen. But these fights, it took 9 or 10 weeks to make the fight the first time round, when we made it back in the summer of 2022. So it's not abnormal, but it needs to be done.
Speaking to Eddie after the show on Saturday night, he said you guys are just waiting on Cruz Eubank Jr. to effectively get back to you guys. What is it that has maybe held up this deal on Juniors from what is maybe he not happy with when he looks at what's on the table?
No, look, as with everything in life, it always there's one key factor always for a lot of these things, and a lot of the time that's the financial side of it, and that's, you know, it's quite easy. We made the fight before, you know, all the details, everything like that. It's quite simple. But that's all it's going to come down to. But like I say, I feel like we'll get there with it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and then we move on to something else. I spent a lot of time on it, but like I say, we've been through this process of 10 weeks when we made it the first time round, and there's other things in play this time round, obviously. So yeah, let's see.
That was going to be my next question. In the background, I imagine you might be working on other fights for Conor if Junior 1 doesn't go ahead. Would it still be the plan for Feb 3rd for Conor Benn to fight, even if it isn't Chris Eubank Jr., or would you maybe push it back a little bit?
That's what we're focusing on, yeah. That's what we're focusing on, to get him back out there. But we have to set a timeline to do that. And look, there's other conversations obviously ongoing, but this is the focus. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, this is the focus. If we don't do this, then we'll go to something else. But that's why the cut-off of really this week, and again, I've said it a few times, but this is now or never.
At least, Frank, by the end of this week, you ain't going to see me in Arizona next week, so you won't have me asking you.
And I can keep saying 48 to 72 hours. Maybe I'll just answer that with everything.
Frank, just moving away from that, I want to get your thoughts on some recent comments from Deontay Wilder around the Anthony Joshua fight. He said that he doesn't believe that Eddie Hearn wants to put the fight on because he's not confident in his product. Joshua is the only money-making fighter Matchroom has, and they don't want to see the business fall to the likes of me, someone that can end someone's career. So just your thoughts on Deontay's comments, effectively saying that don't believe that you guys want to make the fight with AJ because you lose your star man and the money that comes with Anthony Joshua.
Look, we do 36, 40 shows a year. Fortunately, we've got a strong business. But the focus is December 23rd right now for Anthony Joshua. Also, it's not driven by what we want. We do what's right for our fighters. So, anything we do is what's right for us. It's not like Matchroom are going to stand in the way of a deal happening. It doesn't make sense for Matchroom. It's a massive fight, but the focus is very much on December 23rd, so we focus on that and go from there.
Eddie has said in the meantime, in the background, you're still continuing those talks around a Deontay Wilder fight. When the Wallin fight was announced, he actually said he's quite confident something will have progressed in terms of the Deontay Wilder fight taking place next year. Where do things sit on that front? Can you enlighten me at all?
No, like all eyes focused on December 23. That's the fight. It was a short time frame anyway, so AJ's focused on that, preparing for that fight. He had 5 or 6 weeks, and then we go from there. We know there's huge fights that we've spoken about time and time again. There's huge fights to be made as well in 2024 in the heavyweight division, but we got the focus is a tough fight against Deontay Wilder, and got to focus on that. He's got he's training hard, goes out to Saudi soon, and we'll look beyond that after.
Just a final one from me, Frank. Obviously, we've seen Amanda Serrano vacate her WBC title, putting it down to the fact that she wants 12 by 3 minute rounds introduced and sanctioned by them. They're not necessarily as keen. That obviously opens up the door to Sky Nicholson, and she's been ordered to challenge for that title now. I was wanting to get your thoughts on that entire scenario there.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the WBC's position. Like when you look at, there's very few people who are willing to make that move across. Is the reality, move across to, and it's a huge jump. Like it's a massive change to the sport, and it would change it completely. And you have to you're going to get everyone on board. Like I actually think 10-2s is like so entertaining as well. I'm not saying it wouldn't be entertaining 12-3. I'm not saying that, but the product is so entertaining. But look, I don't think they're going to change their position on it. I've seen many interviews with Maurizio Sullivan. I don't think they'll change their position. If other people want to allow it, that's fine. But it doesn't mean you're then going to get everyone within the sport to get behind that. And, there'll be a lot of talk about people saying it, but I don't think a lot of people would do it.
Right, Frank, it's a pleasure to catch up with you as always. I'm leaving you now to obviously speak with the rest of the media who's queuing up for you. You're a busy man these days, so thanks for speaking to him.
There's at least like 36 of them.
Don't speak too loudly. Eddie's ears will start burning and he'll be on the first flight out here. But yeah, thank you for speaking to me, Frank, and I'll see you soon.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.